YMCA and shows no mercy playing against some kids. Look at Zion against some kids, throwing down some dunks as he wants.
Well, none of these kids can do something with you, Zion. We are aware of that. That is true. Now, I look forward to see Zion do this on NBA courts. That would be nice.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these kids aren't old enough to remember Zion playing in the NBA. No, we kid, but he did miss all of last season due to a broken right foot. His former #1 pick has played just 85 games in his NBA career, was recently cleared to return in late May, and can sign a 5-year, $181 million max rookie extension this summer. The question, of course, is, will he? And Tim, we just ran through Zion's substantial injury history. Yeah. What if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, what are you doing with Zion?
Well, you're trying to figure out a way to get a deal done that also gives you some protection in case these injuries continue, right? And I think if you go down I-95, down to Philadelphia and look at the situation of Joel Embiid, I think that is instructive on how things are going to go here. Joel Embiid missed his entire first 2 years of his career and then had injuries in his third season, but he showed a lot of talent at that point, so he and the Sixers came to an agreement that had a bunch of injury protections in the deal, but eventually it became a full max deal because Joel was healthy, went on to be a star player. And I think if you're the Pelicans and Zion Williamson, that's the goal here, is to find some sort of middle ground where these two sides can work out a deal where Zion Williamson's going to get his money eventually if he's healthy, and the Pelicans have some protection if he doesn't.
How do you think this plays out?
Just watching those highlights, he's just absolutely spectacular talent. And this is really a study in risk tolerance, okay? So the Pelicans believe he is a maximum level player. They were ready to give him a contract. It says $189 million on it, but then on the line where it says what's guaranteed, Dan, it's going to be a lot less.
It's going to be like NFL contracts.
Exactly. That's what's kind of what they're looking for. So the question is, how does Zion weigh guaranteeing himself a certain amount of money that will truly be life-changing? I know he's a multimillionaire already, but I believe the Pelicans will probably give him something that guarantees him 9 figures, or in the neighborhood of 9 figures. So how do you weigh if you're Zion? I want to know, I know I'm going to have that money no matter what. But say, hey, wait a minute. If I wait another year and I can be a free agent, I feel like there's going to be other teams out there that are going to give me a contract where it's all guaranteed. Well, I don't have to take any risk at all. And even if I don't play great this year, they'll see those highlights and they'll want to do it. And then if you're the Pelicans, you're saying, well, look, we don't want this guy to be unhappy. We want this guy to be here. We want this guy to be locked up. So where do we come to an equilibrium with that? Is that $120 million guaranteed? Is that $95 million guaranteed? Is that 3 years guaranteed? Do you play 60 games in your 4th year and have your 5th year guaranteed? Those are all things that are going to be negotiated probably over time. And because the two sides here, even though they're smiling about each other right now, Zion at the end of the season said, oh yeah, I'm going to sign. And David Griffin at the end of the season gave an interview where he said, oh yeah, we see him as a max player. It sounds like they're all happy. But I got a feeling that it's going to be hard to hammer out a deal that doesn't have much of a precedent. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like we said, right? This is going to be a deal where the bold print is going to be very clear. It's going to be 5 years, $189 million. The fine print is where it's going to get interesting. That's the part that needs to be figured out. The top part, everybody agrees on. It's the bottom part is where it gets tricky.
Can you imagine a situation where they would let him leave?
No, I don't, because they understand in the situation they're in. They've got C.J. McCollum locked up long-term. They've got Brandon Ingram locked up long-term. This is the team they have. If Zion Williamson leaves, this team is going nowhere. They need Zion Williamson to be on the court and be great to have any chance to have real success. And so you have to basically commit to him and say, all right, we need to have you here. But and again, it just comes back to they have to have some protection because, again, he's played basically 1 out of 3 seasons so far. So they can't just say, sure, we think you're going to be great. We're going to give you all the money. They need to get a little bit of protection. And Zion, like Brian said, he looks at it and says, I'm a terrific talent. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be healthy. Give me the money now.
Right. Now, he believes that, and they obviously hope for it. If that is the case, if he's healthy, he's able to stay healthy, what's the ceiling for them? Man.
I mean, I'm a big Zion Williamson believer. I was a huge fan of his talent when he was at Duke. He was actually a more dynamic player at Duke. I don't know if he can ever get back to that player. He was an all-NBA level player his second year before the foot injury. And you look at the Pelicans, not only do they have some really interesting young pieces to put around him, they've done a really good job drafting the last couple of years. They have assets on their team that they could either make a trade or develop around him. So the Pelicans' upward mobility is tremendous. I covered their first-round series against Phoenix this year. I was very impressed with them. And Zion has to see that. So they need to keep that momentum going.
So, yeah, a lot of ifs, a lot of hypotheticals, but a lot of potential as well. We're going to move to the end. Saw that he isn't just an NBA star. Check out his football skills on display. Tim, Brian, what do we think about Anthony Edwards playing football?
Ooh. Well, Anthony Edwards, when he was a kid, wanted to be a football player, despite the fact he ended up being number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And that was a heck of a bomb from him.
It was. And now you know, as
How do
they
you
used
feel
to
about
say,
his footwork, Dan?
rest-
Do you think his footwork is...
I think I'd have to see it again. I'd have to break it down slow motion, maybe see some all 22. But it looks promising.
I'd want him on defense, to be honest.
Let's talk about his
Terrifying linebacker.
Let's talk about the league where he actually earns his money. In the NBA, Kyrie Irving. You see, you guys are getting distracted. You guys have 3.5 hours till free agency.
Don't remind me.
You should be focused. Kyrie Irving has filed paperwork to pick up his $36.5 million option with the Nets for next season, our sources told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. Earlier this week, there's a lot of drama surrounding Kyrie, unusually, after he released a list of teams to which he would consider a trade. So, in the latest chapter of As Kyrie Turns, we ask you, Brian Windhorst, plain and simple, will Kyrie Irving be a member of the Nets after this season?
So no.
And there you have it, folks.
He's a very difficult guy to plan for. I really wonder, because obviously he will continue to play in the NBA. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. If he continues to play in the NBA after this year, I'll be interested to see how many years any team, whether it's the Nets or somebody else, signs him for, because it's very difficult with him. But, if you go back and look at the way he played 2 seasons ago, before the vaccine issue, he had a very good season. He was reasonably healthy that year, other than when he took his sabbatical, his unannounced sabbatical midseason. He was a 50-40-90, 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the line. That's the absolute efficiency, triumvirate there.
He's the second-team All-NBA guard, top 10 player in the league.
Yeah, so I don't know about top 10, but...
Well, I'm just saying, literally, that's the top 10 players in the league.
So, I look at him and I say, he could come back and do that this year, especially if he's in a mood where he's trying to stick it to people and prove a point. I think Kevin Durant is a transcendent talent. I have for a long time. I've got immense respect for his game. I think Ben Simmons, if he's healthy, is the kind of defensive presence and the kind of versatile defensive player that is ideal for what they need. They have 2 of the best shooters, wing shooters in the league, and Joe Harris and Seth Curry. They've got an owner who's extremely wealthy and not afraid to spend money. This is a very good team. And if we can just get past the clutter, and they've got to do some work today, because you can see all those free agents. Patty Mills opted out yesterday. They would hope to bring him back, but both Bruce Brown and Nick Claxton are important pieces. They're going to be, in theory, which is the best you can do, they're going to be like a big-time team. But there's so many question marks, it's really hard to count on.
Yeah,
And Nets are the ultimate theoretical team, right? On paper, they're as good as any team in the league. But in actuality, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have played a combined 58 games together, including the playoffs over the first 3 seasons with this team. And as Brian said, all these things look good, but let's see it actually happen on the court.
What do you
Once
think?
that happens, then I can believe in them.
What kind of Kyrie Irving do you think that they'll get next year?
I mean, given the fact that Kyrie Irving was cowed into taking this 1-year player option and having to pick it up because no one wanted him in his sign and trade over the past few days, except for the Lakers, who really didn't have another choice but to try to get him, I think you would expect Kyrie Irving to come in and want to be aggressive in being on the court, playing well, having the Nets do well, and as a result, having everybody be successful, both in terms of him getting a long-term deal and the Nets winning a championship. If he plays 60, 65, 70 games and the Nets win 45, 50, 55, 60 games, things probably should work out okay for Kyrie Irving long term. But as I like to say, and I've said all week, the only answer to any question involving Kyrie Irving is maybe. And really, until we see him on the court, you can only just say maybe about him.
No maybes. Yes or no, will the Nets win a title with Kyrie Irving on the team?
No.
I agree.
Both saying no. We'll, of course, see what happens. Speaking of the Nets, let's play a little game now. It's called Contender or Pretender. Tim, we were just talking about the Brooklyn Nets. Are they title contenders or pretenders?
They are pretenders until they show that they can actually be on the court. If these guys are on the court together, as I just said, they are a championship-level team. But we saw them here against the Boston Celtics in the first round. They looked like pretenders in that series, and they got blown off the court and swept. Until I see them actually prove it on the court, pretenders for me.
Brian, the 76ers and assistant GM James Harden, are they title contenders or pretenders?
I'm laughing at your hard line. Absolutely contenders. Look, I think that they're still a flawed team, and we've got to see what shooting guard James Harden is. That's the most important thing as opposed to GM. But they're going to be a much deeper and more well-rounded team than we saw in the playoffs.
Definitely contenders for me.